Hey guys, this is Undercover Dudes all the way from Down Under, and today we're going to be talking more about the new, upcoming, free-to-play first-person shooter from Riot Games called Valorant. Officially announced a couple of days ago, Valorant is a free-to-play first-person shooter which has its roots in CSGO-like lethality, but also has abilities similar to that from Overwatch or Paladins. While everyone has talked about what they think of the gameplay, today we're going to be talking about something different, but equally important, that being the low-spec nature of Valorant. When Valorant was first announced and confirmed to be free-to-play, everyone was excited for a new FPS to play. However, a large group of gamers were scared that their PCs wouldn't be able to run Valorant, that being because the gaming industry has been moving towards better and better looking games instead of performance. If you look at the top free-to-play games right now, very few of them can crack the esports level of 144 FPS on old computers. Many of them can do well, many of them look really good, but very few focus on the very low spec computers that a lot of people have. Very few developers actually consider the needs of what really is the majority of gamers. However, Riot Games is one of those studios and their mindset for Valorant is absolutely perfect. While I do question the decisions of Riot Games at times, in particular and most recently why they decided to focus so much on abilities in the gameplay preview for Valorant, one thing I do not question is their decade-long experience in making free-to-play games and how they market them. So today, let's do a deep dive into the mindset of Riot Games that will, without a doubt, make Valorant one of the biggest games in 2020. So with that introduction out of the way, let's get straight into it. What type of computer will you need in order to play Valorant? And the answer is literally a toaster. What do I mean by that? Well, let's start out with the minimum specifications, which Riot says will let you play Valorant at 30 frames per second. Now for this, you'll need an Intel i3 3700M CPU and an Intel HD 3000 GPU. And let me explain how low tier these components are. The CPU is over 10 years old and is a laptop and mobile processor. The GPU is 9 years old and is a laptop integrated graphics unit, i.e. it's not even a real graphics card. Basically, any PC from the last decade will be able to play Valorant on at least 30 frames per second, and that is incredibly important as it opens this game up to such a huge market. There is a lot of people with bad PCs, but I'm specifically talking about the Asian market, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. This also opens Valorant up massively to the laptop demographic, which is growing bigger and bigger, and with school laptops easily meeting these requirements, it will be extremely interesting to see how many new gamers pick Valorant up. Now next up is the recommended specifications, i.e. how to play Valorant at 60 frames per second. Now for this, you'll need an Intel i3 4150 processor, a low-tier processor from 2014, and a GeForce GT 730 graphics card, again a low-tier card from 2014, with both of these components retailing for about $100 on release. Now this is moving away from laptop specifications and moving more towards desktop specifications. However, these components are so low tier, basically anybody that has a desktop from the last 10 years should be able to go and play this game at 60 frames per second, and that's an amazing thing to see. Now let's move on to the high-end specs, the 144 plus FPS range. For this, you'll need an Intel Core i5 4460 and a GTX 1050 Ti. Now while these components are definitely beefier than what we last talked about, they are somewhat old and, moderate to medium spec. This means that many people will be able to go and run Valorant at esports level frames per second, way past 60 frames per second, more into the 100 and 200 range, which means that this game has so much untapped competitive potential, given that anybody really wants to go and try and be a pro gamer at this game, doesn't have a very high requirement for their desktop, and very low tier parts can go and produce high frames per second, which is very important in establishing a competitive scene. So those tiers are pretty cool, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you are excited at the opportunity of playing this game, no matter what computer you have. However, it's been interesting seeing the reaction to Valorant as it has been a mixed bag, particularly in regards to the graphics and the art style. Many gamers are upset that the art style and graphics aren't up to the 2020 standard, but personally I am a bit thankful. So many developers chase the best of the best when it comes to graphics, but very few go for optimal performance, and that's the goal with Valorant, not only in terms of frame rates, but also latency. While the art style feels a little bit derivative of Overwatch, it's still in the League of Legends vein and is bright and attractive and is most definitely Riot Games style. Riot Games is very good at packing a lot of detail into not much and then keeping the FPS rates very, very high. So with that, personally, I don't really care if the graphics aren't the most spectacular. I think if they're just okay, but the focus is on the gameplay and performance, that makes me a very, very happy man. And from what I can go and see with the gameplay preview and the gameplay trailers, Valorant is definitely going in that direction. Now with that said, let's go back to discussing the performance of Valorant, and I want to go back to one of my previous talking points and go and discuss it a little bit more, and that's about the Asian market that Riot Games most definitely wants to tap into again, as they've already done it before. If you don't know Riot Games, they go and develop and publish League of Legends, which is one of the biggest games in the world, both casually and competitively. This company knows how to manage a large game, not only in the West, but also in the East, with the game booming globally. Let's now contrast that to a game that you most likely have never heard of, the free-to-play first-person shooter juggernaut in Crossfire. This game is a broken pay-to-win mess, and as a result, completely died in the West, with the North American and European servers basically being deserted. Move over to China though, and this game is huge, with millions and millions of players. The reason? Its gameplay is pretty much Counter-Strike 1.6 to a T, and it's easy to run on basically every computer. Forget the pay-to-win nature that infects the whole game, the boring maps, the boring modes. The game just resonates with Chinese gamers who want an easy to pick up and easy to run experience. Move over to South Korea, and the same thing goes for the free-to-play first-person shooter Sudden Attack, an incredibly old game that is still living and breathing and thriving on the exact same principles that Crossfire is. It has very, very low graphics requirements, the gameplay is very derivative of Counter-Strike 1.6, and it has a very cult following because people can just go and hop on, they can play with their friends. Overall, super easy to get into, and the gameplay is super easy to pick up. The game is played so much over there that Nexon, the publishers of Sudden Attack, they tried to go and push out Sudden Attack 2, upgraded graphics, upgraded gameplay, customization, etc. But the gamers, they just didn't want it. They just wanted normal Sudden Attack, and Sudden Attack 2, it died in less than a year. My point for bringing up these two games is that when it comes to the MOBA market, Riot Games has it locked down when it comes to the East. League of Legends is absolutely huge, and it's what people go and play in Asia. However, when it comes to first-person shooters, the games that they play are arguably of much less quality than that of League of Legends. Man, it sounds like I'm such a Riot Games fanboy, but I'm just stating the facts right here. But when it comes to it, Sudden Attack and Crossfire, they're just not really good first-person shooters. And Riot sees an opportunity to slide into that market, go and provide a very quality experience, and just completely take over Asia in the free-to-play market, not only from the MOBA side, but also the first-person shooter side. It's interesting because Overwatch is a pay-to-play game, and Riot Games, they didn't just want to go and put out a Counter-Strike Global Offensive clone, because then they would be competing with Counter-Strike Global Offensive. So going and putting out a CSGO and ability kind of fusion, go and change it up a little bit, it might go and be just different enough that people go and stray from their normal games to go and try this one out, especially when it's being backed up by Riot Games. If this game was being made by any other studio, nobody would go and bat an eye, but because Riot Games is finally putting out another game, this is quite exciting, and so that's why there's so much hype around it. While this might seem like a bit of a tangent, my point is still very much there. Performance is at the forefront of Valorant, and graphics and fidelity, that takes a back seat. They want the gameplay experience to be first and foremost, and that opens this game up to such a wide market. Not only Western gamers that want a free-to-play first-person shooter to play that isn't Counter-Strike Global Offensive, but also Eastern gamers that want something a little bit different from what they've previously been playing. With that, a low performance barrier, new games come in, especially console gamers that have potentially like a school laptop and then a console that they play Call of Duty on, right? That school laptop, it could potentially run Valorant at 30 frames per second, and they could go and start PC gaming, PC first-person shooter gaming on their school school laptop. Overall, there's so many entries to market that Valorant has that surely there's got to be some form of success unless the game is just a complete flop in terms of its raw gameplay. Now, don't get it confused, I still have my doubts about Valorant, especially in regards to Valorant's quite powerful abilities, and it'll be quite interesting to go and see how this weird CSGO and Overwatch fusion will actually work out. However, we know at the very least that Valorant is a game which basically everyone will be able to go and run on their PC and laptop, and that opens this game up to such a huge audience that I'm sure it will have some form of success. So with that said, make sure to go and smash that like button if you enjoyed the video, and comment in the comment section below what your opinion about Valorant's performance requirements are. But for now, it's Undercover Dudes, all the way from down under, out.